Anthropic just published one of the most useful pieces of writing about Claude Code that has ever come out of the company. It is called Seeing Like an Agent. And it is the first time the team behind Claude Code has openly walked through the actual lessons they learned, designing the tools the model uses every day. This is not marketing. This is the playbook. By the end of this video, you will know the 5 lessons inside that playbook, why they matter for the way you use Claude Code, and the one mental model that the team uses to design every tool. The mental model is the part that quietly changes everything. Let us get into it. Here is the frame. Imagine you are handed a hard math problem. What tools would you want to solve it? The answer depends entirely on your own skills. Paper is the minimum, but you are limited by manual calculation. A calculator is faster, but you have to know the advanced functions. A full computer is the most powerful, but only if you can write and run code. Same problem, 3 completely different action spaces, and the right one depends on the solver. The Claude Code team uses this exact frame to design tools for the model. Not what tools sound impressive, not what tools look complete, what tools fit the model's actual ability. They call this seeing like an agent. You read its outputs, you watch where it gets stuck, you give it the action space that fits. That is the entire job of an agent harness. And that is the lens for everything that comes next. Lesson 1: Asking the user better questions. The team noticed something subtle. Claude could already ask questions in plain text, but answering those questions felt slow. There was no structure, no options, no way to click, just a wall of words. So they asked, how do we lower the friction and raise the bandwidth between the user and the model? This is a problem most people building agents never even think about. They obsess over what the model says. The Claude Code team obsessed over what the user has to do to reply. That single shift, treating elicitation as a tool problem, is what produced the Ask User Question tool you use today. But they did not get there in one shot. They got there in 3. Attempt 1. The first idea was the easy one. They already had an exit plan tool, which Claude calls when it wraps up plan mode. So they just bolted on a parameter an array of questions next to the plan. One tool, one call, done. Except it was not done. The model got confused. It was being asked to commit to a plan and ask questions about that same plan in the same breath. What if the user's answer contradicted the plan? Does Claude call the tool twice? The shape of the tool itself was sending the model a contradictory signal. The lesson here is brutal. A tool that combines 2 intents, planning and asking, will degrade both. Cheap to ship, wrong on the inside. Attempt 2. The opposite extreme. No tool at all. Just teach Claude to output a special markdown format. The harness could pass. Bullet points for questions, brackets for options. The advantage was generality. You could ask anything anywhere. The model was even decent at it. But decent is not guaranteed. Sometimes Claude added an extra sentence. Sometimes it dropped an option. Sometimes it picked a different format entirely. And the entire user interface lived downstream of this format. One drift and the model broke. The deeper lesson is that unstructured output is a contract you cannot enforce. The model is free to wander. If the surface needs to be reliable, the contract has to be a tool, not a parsing convention. Attempt 3, the sweet spot. They built Ask User Question as its own dedicated tool. Claude can call it anytime, but it is especially nudged in plan mode. When the call fires, the harness pauses. Claude's loop, the user sees a clean modal with options, picks an answer, and Claude resumes with the answer in context. three things flipped. The output became structured because tool inputs are typed. The user got composability because the tool can be referenced from skills, the agent SDK, anywhere. And most importantly, Claude liked calling it. That last part is the one most people miss. Even a beautifully designed tool is dead if the model does not naturally reach for it. They did not just design a tool, they designed a tool the model wanted to use. Lesson 2: Tools that helped yesterday can constrain you tomorrow. Early Claude code shipped with a to do write tool. The model would write a list, check items off, stay on track. It worked. The team even injected system reminders every 5 turns, nudging Claude back to the list. Then the models got smarter. With Opus 4.5, the reminders started backfiring. Claude stopped modifying the list when the plan should change because it read the reminder as orders. Subagents could not coordinate on a shared list. The old tool had become a cage. So the team replaced todo-write with tasks. Tasks have dependencies, share updates across subagents, can be edited and deleted, and treat the model as a smart coordinator rather than a forgetful assistant. The takeaway: every 6 months, you should look at your agent's toolset and ask which of these tools used to help and is now in the way. Capabilities move. Action spaces have to move with them. Lesson 3: Let the agent build its own context. Day 1: Claude Code used a vector database, classic retrieval augmented generation, to find relevant code, fast and powerful in theory. In practice, it was fragile, required indexing, broke across environments, and crucially, it handed Claude context instead of letting Claude find it. So the team made a different bet. If the model can search the web, why can it not search your code base? They gave it grep, file glob, and read. And something interesting happened. The smarter Claude got, the better it became at building its own context. It would explore, it would follow imports, it would chase definitions across files. The agent became its own retrieval system with no embeddings, no index, no infrastructure. That is the pattern. As capability rises, you stop spoon feeding context and start giving the model the search tools to go get it. Which leads to lesson 4: progressive disclosure. Skills formalize this. A skill is a markdown file with instructions. But the magic is that the skill can reference other files, which can reference other files, which Claude reads only when needed. Nothing loads upfront. The model walks the tree on demand. The cost is paid where the value is created. And because you can put API instructions, database queries, internal documentation behind these references, you get a way to add huge amounts of capability to Claude without adding a single new tool. This is the part most agent builders skip. They keep stuffing context into the system prompt because that feels safe. The Claude Code team does the opposite. They keep the system prompt lean and let Claude pull context only when it is actually relevant. Lower context rot, higher precision, same surface area. Lesson 5: The Claude Code Guide Subagent. The team noticed that Claude Code did not know how to answer questions about itself. Ask it how /commands work or how to add an MCP server, and it would guess. They could have stuffed the docs into the system prompt, but most users never ask about this stuff. So every other conversation would carry that weight as context rot. They tried giving Claude a doc link to load on demand, but the model loaded too much just to find one answer. So they built a dedicated Claude Code Guide subagent with extensive search instructions and a clean output contract. When you ask Claude how to set itself up, it now delegates that question to the guide subagent and gets back a focused answer. The action space grew. The main tool count did not. That is the move. A subagent is a tool that costs almost nothing in context, but adds an entire new capability lane. So, what is the thread through all five lessons? The bar to add a new tool is high because every tool is one more thing the model has to think about. You do not start with 50 tools. You start by reading the model's outputs, watching where it stalls, and shaping the action space to fit. When a tool stops fitting, you replace it. When you can avoid adding a tool, you avoid it. When you must add one, you design it so the model wants to call it. There is no rigid formula. It is an art, not a science. And the people doing it best are the ones who experiment often, read their outputs, and try new things. That is what seeing like an agent actually means. Stop asking what tools sound complete. Start asking what tools fit this specific model, this specific goal, this specific environment. The ones who internalize this loop are the ones whose agents quietly pull away from the rest. Quick personal ask before we wrap. 90% of the people who watch this channel never subscribe. If this helped you in your AI journey, please hit subscribe and support the channel. And just to be clear, subscribing on YouTube is not the same as following the Hyper Automation Labs page on Facebook. They are completely separate things. Subscribers are the single biggest signal that helps the channel grow. And right now, we are still early enough that subscribing actually moves the needle. Subscribe early, win early. Comment the word agent below this video, and I will send you the Seeing Like an Agent playbook as a free PDF. The 5 lessons distilled, the 3 attempts at Ask User Question broken down side by side, the Todos to Tasks decision matrix, and the 1-page checklist for designing your own agent's tools. Comment agent, and it is yours. Catch you in the next one.